recording. Here we go. All kinds of technical snafus as we go forward in creating this epic webinar for you. Anyway, so I wasn't able to walk my horse anymore, and people were not able to really give me good advice, and it was very upsetting. And Sharon came to the rescue, literally, both for myself as well as the other volunteers at this particular rescue. And so she was able to get me to a place where I could really learn how to understand my body affected my horse, as well as any hand gestures and just basic lead rope skills. And it absolutely changed everything for me and my horse and my relationship. We have epic rapport. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Heidi Potter, who is our very first Horse Speak senior instructor. And she is going to go over some housekeeping things with you. And then we're going to get Sharon right on, and you guys are going to start learning. So thank you so much for being with us and taking the time out of your personal lives to learn more about Horse Speak. Take it away, Heidi.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, guys. Well, welcome to the 1 o'clockers that could make it, and to all of you that signed up for this evening. We're so glad to have you here. Just to give you a little bit of insight in how I got involved in Horse Speak, I have a booth at Equine Affair every year, and Sharon was there presenting a couple years ago. And a good friend of mine, Deb Maynard, happened to see her and came to me and said, I saw someone I think you'd really like. She bought me the book that year for Christmas, and when I read it, I thought, I need to get in touch with this person. So much to my delight, I found out Sharon lived a half hour from me. And we've been working together ever since. We had been on very similar paths, and we had a lot of tools, but we were still searching for what was missing. And Horse Speak has definitely been that for me. So I can't help but share it. So many of you have worked with me learning Horse Speak as I learn it, and I look forward to our continuing education in Horse Speak. I think also it's important to know that professionals that are joining us for this series, you know, you're really going to love it. These things that you're going to learn are going to just enhance the work you're doing and give you great insights into some changes that you might be able to make that will make all the difference. You know, the point of the webinar is that we're going to empower people by teaching what's really, truly natural to horses. And that's where Sharon's expertise comes in. So we've all been searching for that. What is natural? And you're about to find out, and you're going to love it. I also want to let you know that if you have any issues tonight, any technical issues, I've communicated with lots of you today, please feel free to email me. My email address is heidi@heidipotter.com. And also, throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please email them to me. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to reserve about 15 or 20 minutes for Sharon to answer a few of those questions for you. So I think that's all I'm going to say right now. And without any further delay, here's Sharon Wilsie to start your lessons. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Yeah. Click on it for me.
You're going.
I'm going.
Talking. You're there.
Oh, I'm live. All the snafus today. Oh my gosh. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. This is amazing to me. There was such an overwhelming response. So many people, even today, people were calling in last minute. I want to get on the webinar. So I'm going to start with a little bit of information about myself because, you know, I've written a little bit about myself in some of my books, but people still ask me, hey, Sharon, you know, where does this come from? So this is a picture of me at 3 years old, and I'm at a local zoo. There was a zoo near my house, and my mother would take me there to get some fresh air. And the reason that she did that is that I actually spent a good deal of time hospitalized when I was little, up until the age of 10. And the reason that that's important is because when you spend a lot of time sick and in bed, you don't have the same bouncy childhood that other kids have. And what that meant was that I had to use my mind to entertain myself. So my powers of observation and my using my own head and really studying things. I learned to do art as a young child. I was actually selling artwork by the age of 13. that took me on a different kind of journey than most kids go on. So really from an early age, I was learning about the world from a very different point of view than a lot of people do. And this picture is really important to me because that's a tarpon. That was a tarpon exhibit. And, if any of you have seen the picture of Rocky or my story about Rocky, as far as I know, he's a tarpon. There is a tarpon breeding program in this country. And so just the fact that this picture surfaced a couple of years ago, my mother said, "Hey, look at this picture, Sharon." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." So the reason that this is important is because this is where my passion for horses really began. And it turned into this. It turned into a whole career. So I worked with volunteers from a lot of different kinds of programs. I taught at Landmark College. I worked at rescues. And in all the work that I was doing that I was drawn to do, I was really looking for rapport. In every situation, every horse and rider combination, I'm looking for what is the most significant things that I can do to help a horse and a person come together and really understand each other. In order to answer that question for myself, I actually took time out. So about a year I spent just sitting and watching and studying and being as true to that observer mind that I had already learned how to do when I was just a little kid as I could be. And what was so important about this time in my life was that, I didn't know where it was going to take me. And it was really just a personal itch that I was trying to scratch. I just needed to know, what is it that horses are doing so that they are telling each other a lot of information that I wanted to be able to tell them as well. And really, bottom line came down to wanting just to give horses a voice. So this is Rocky. And being able to take some of the things that this mentor taught me into the world to teach others, it still gives me chills, to be honest with you. There are things that happen sometimes at a workshop that I have to step back and say, wow, that was really amazing. So what does this mean for you? We're going to talk a little bit about the gap. And the gap is why you're here. Everybody comes from a place where there's something that you want, and then there's the world that the horse exists in. And sometimes those two worlds come together and sometimes they don't. So the challenge, as I understand it, is that we've wanted horses to work for us for thousands of years. And if you're teaching an animal to work for you, you're not really paying a lot of attention to how does that animal feel, or just enough to make sure that it's still working for you. But we're not asking them to relate to us in the way that we are nowadays. I mean, some horses still work. You have various positions where they need horses for jobs, but most of us don't really need horses for work. We need horses for a different reason. We're looking for something that's a little bit deeper. So if we're going to talk about bridging the gap, what we really have to do is dive into the horse's language, and they are a non-verbal species. So all of their motions, everything that they do, every single motion that they make is part of their language. It's part of how they communicate with each other. One of the tricks to learning how to learn horse body language is being able to get out of your own way a little bit, get out of some of the habits that we're used to, and also go back into a different frame of mind that was natural to all of us at one point, and that may not be so natural to us anymore. What we're looking for is this nice, quiet feeling. This image right here of the horse's eyes are closed. She's so soft. The person is so soft. This is really the feeling that we're looking for. And in this image, what you can see is, well, the person's soft and they're round, the shoulders are rounded, and the arms around it. And really, this is a completely natural posture. If you're going to hug your friend, or you're going to pick up a puppy or rock a baby, you're going to make this kind of posture. So the most amazing thing about body language is that it's actually really innate. It's already going on in the back of your mind. And what we have to be able to do with horses is really two things. One is make it more conscious, and two, we have to understand some of how they use their postures. So what gets in the way is our own brain. When we're first born, when we're little kids, we use mirroring. We use body language. We're pre-verbal. So what we're going to try to do is develop an easier way to access a part of ourselves that's already there, that our other parts have learned to sort of mask over and filter over. And they do say that body language makes up, 80% of the information that your brain is actually taking in, but it hits a different part of the brain. So in order for body language to really start to make sense to both of us, there's a few things that we need to do in order to open up to that world of the horse. So we're going to dive into their world now. We're going to start to think more like they think. And the first thing about learning to think the way they think is understanding that they have a very strong set of drives. And we actually have the same drives, but we can use our minds a little bit differently than they can. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So here's just an image of the brain. And what we can see here is there's an eye looking at a snake, and there's the snake showing up right in the back of the brain. And that's what happens when the limbic system is kicked in, is that you see something move, and they've done experiments in a public square where someone goes, ah, and then the person that's walking by jumps a foot and they don't know why. And the reason why is that there's still a part of us that says, I'm going to save your life. I'm going to bypass all that thinking. I'm going to bypass all of the language that you normally use. And you're just going to jump. You're just going to get out of the way because that thing could hurt you. The rest of the time, we're filtering all that information out, and we're choosing instead our verbal language. The difference is that horses aren't. So what we have to think about in terms of how prey animals respond to the world is the 4 Fs. We have fight, flight. We also have flock and freeze. These are important to think about because you want to know that your horse is always on the edge of one of these Fs. They're hardwired to jump first and think second. That's just how nature designed them. And we want to be careful not to trigger those responses by accident with something that we're trying to do, thinking we're trying to train. And this is where I think some of the gap has shown up, because it's not that a method or a technique isn't necessarily working, but that is it triggering the horse to go into a state of rapport, or is it triggering the horse to go into one of the 4 Fs? So in order to drop into that state of rapport with a horse, we're going to talk about 0. And if you've been to any of my clinics or you've read the books, you know that this is a big topic. But we're going to really examine this topic a little bit more because it is one of the foundations that we have to be able to build. These horses are not at 0. We have the black horse on the left, and she's in a flight state, maybe a freeze state, and we have the brown horse on the right, and she's in an aggressive state, probably a fight state. And so either of these conditions are not conducive to responding. And this is really the difference. When a horse is at 0, they can respond. They can take that breath. They can hear you. They can hear each other. When they're in a 4F state, they can't anymore. They're in a place that I have to save my life. Now, what's really interesting to me, as I sat in a field and studied horses and got to, even at the rescues, I got to sit there and study mentors. There'd be sometimes a horse would come in that was really abused or was just really shut down or wounded in some way. And we put them out with one of the mentors that just lived at the place. They were an older horse. They're not going to get adopted. And, they had come to be, old Bob in the corner, and old Bob could just sort of put anybody at ease. But I would sit there and watch old Bob and say, well, what is he doing? Because that's what I want to do. And what old Bob did is, old Bob didn't do much, but that's important. Old Bob knew exactly how to maintain zero, no matter what the other horse was feeling or doing, what was going on, no matter what was going on in the environment, on the farm, trucks driving past or new people. Old Bob was steady Eddie. He could maintain his zero no matter what. And so you look at these pictures, and the wild horse in front, the mare in front, that you can see her head's a little lower. She's looking at the camera, but she has that expression of zero on her face. And some of the horses behind her are much more up. So what I realized was that the lead horses are the calmest horses. And I'm not the first person to discover that. Other people have made that discovery as well. But what I wanted to know is not only how are they being the leaders, because it doesn't look like they're doing that much, but what specifically and exactly are they doing to help change a horse's mind? So one of the things that started to jump out at me was that being at zero also creates a draw. It's attractive. If nothing else, just breathing deeper, just dropping my posture, rounding my shoulders, making an O posture, blinking my eyes. If nothing else, horses would come closer to me. The ones that couldn't be caught, you couldn't get a halter on them at the rescue. They were, they'd been abused, they'd been starved, whatever was going on. And they were just did not want to interact with people anymore. But you just drop into that zero, and all of a sudden they get closer and closer and closer. So this is how I started to open the door for rapport. And this is really what I want to impress on everyone here today, that even if all you can do is go out and breathe deeper and soften your shoulders and soften your arms, you are already starting to open that door for rapport. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a meditation right now, because people say to me, okay, Sharon, sounds great, but I'm really stressed out after work, or I'm a kind of type A personality, I'm not sure how I'm going to find my zero. So luckily, because the limbic system is also responsible for our deep relaxation, there's things we can do with our body to help drop that energy and relax ourselves. So if you're going to take your two fingers right here, these two right in the middle, and put them together, and then just drop that in your lap. Just relax your shoulders a little bit. Take a big breath. Make sure your eyes are soft. Maybe smile. Close your eyes if you'd like to. And the idea right now is to find your center. When your fingertips come together like this, it activates a part of your brain that says, the only reason I would be putting my fingers together like this is because there's no problems. I'm not in danger. Everything's fine. And luckily, that's hardwired. So just by dropping your hands in your lap like this and taking a couple of deep breaths, you already start to lower the intensity inside your body. And if that's the only way you can get there, it's a great way to get there. Some people may also include a visual image. You might think about one of your favorite scenes from a movie, or being on top of a mountain. And some people like sounds, and so they might think of a favorite song. Some people might like just more deep breathing exercises. So you need to find out what brings you to your zero, and then be able to activate it on purpose. Because when we're faced with a horse who maybe isn't zero, we don't want our nervous system getting tripped by their nervous system and going into one of the 4Fs ourselves. We want to look like that leader and say, whatever you're doing, I'm going to be calm. So now what? Now that we're going through that door, you can find your zero. You can look more attractive to a horse. You can start to show up with a different presence. The first exercise I'm going to take you on is the first exercise the horses took me on, mirroring. I cannot state enough how important mirroring was for me for quite some time. You're not going to learn all of the signals that horses are going to do without being able to get out of your habitual movements. So before you try to layer a bunch of signals on top, which you can if you've read the books. People have said, oh, I read chapter 1, I went out and did one exercise and it worked, it was great. And that's awesome. But to get the feel and the rhythm and the timing of your horse, my best solution is to go and spend some time not trying to communicate, but instead trying to mirror them. When we're babies, like I said before, one of the first things that we do is mirroring. It teaches us how to be with the bodies around us. When horses are in harmony with each other, they mirror each other. So when you can have a little bit of fun with this and really do what they do and imagine that you had ears, and you'll be amazed. I've taken people on this exercise, and I've had people say in 5 minutes of mirroring, I had no idea how busy my horse was. I thought he was just standing there. And turns out he moved constantly. So this is a great exercise. When horses mirror each other, it's one of the ways that they build harmony. So you'll see in these two pictures, on one side, horses are drinking out of the pool, and on the other side, the horses are running together. When horses say, hey, we're buddies, we're together, we're lined up, we're with each other, they will mirror each other. It's absolutely natural for them. So just practicing mirroring your horse is a great way to begin building more rapport, because your body language starts to take on their body language. And most of us have had a lot of training, teaching, coaching on how to be with horses. And a lot of it has to do with, stand up straight. And you always need to look like you're in control. And there's a place for that, but at this stage of the game, when we're just wanting to build rapport, you really want to not be so worried about, I need to show you who's boss, and a little bit more interested in, I want to create harmony with you the way another horse would want to create harmony with you. So that brings us to mirroring neurons. And what we're trying to shift is from looking, whoops, went backwards a little bit there. Sorry. Okay. Whoops, now we're a little bit stuck. Pardon me. Here we go. We're changing from looking to seeing. We're going to look at this several times. Looking, for me, how I use that word is, we look at a horse, we say, oh, look at that beautiful bay, or, oh, look at his back, it's so straight and wonderful, or it's caved in, or we look and we sort of analyze. And seeing is a different quality of observing the horse. So you're really letting go of judging and analyzing, and you're stepping into, I see, I observe, I take it in, I allow myself to be connected with what this horse is doing, the ear and the nostril and the eye, and head went down, head went up, neck leaned this way, and then a foot went that way. Now, one thing that's really interesting, someone sent me a link at one point to an article about horses, and it said that they have at least 6 million more mirroring neurons than we do. And the ones that we have, we're usually pretty much filtering out anyway. So their senses are so high. What they're taking in through their senses, they can see in ultraviolet, they can smell and hear as good as a dog can, they can feel through their hooves into the earth. There's so many things that horses are taking in, and their perception is so much stronger than ours. So all we're trying to do is catch up a little bit. So just to recap, we've talked about a lot of things. We've gone on about zero, and hopefully you understand a little more about why zero is so important, because we want to look like the leader who can stay zero no matter what's going on in the world. I am zero, I'm zero for you, even if I'm fake it till you make it, or I'm just trying, or I'm just pretending, but you need to at least try to go there. We talked a little bit about the 4Fs, and that they're very, very close to the surface on a horse. We can think our way through them a little bit more. So, if we see something on the ground, there's that pause button that human beings have to say, snake or hose? And we can make that determination. A horse, something on the ground, it moved, I don't know, I'm out of here. They mostly don't stick around to see what it is. They're just going to leave. So that's where we need to use our zero to look like a leader, so they look at us to say, snake or hose? What do you say, Mom? What is it? instead of listening to Mother Nature inside of themselves. That's where we get into all the trouble. And then lastly, we talked about mirroring, which is the ability to start to copy their motions, their breathing patterns, their movements with our own, so that we can get out of our habituated movement. Again, our body movements and our gestures are geared to emphasize the words that we're saying. So like, I'm very Italian, so my hands are always going. And I like to do a lot of emphasis, but this to a horse doesn't mean anything. So sometimes I'll be at a clinic and I've gotten my language, my signals going on with the horse, and then I'll turn and talk to a person and I'll do this and the horse will say, what does that mean? So I say, sorry. So we want to be able to get out of some of our habituated motions that we're used to doing and just get into the flow of the motions that they do. So now we're going to enter into another topic. So how do horses see the world? This is really important because the next subject that we're going to talk about is the foundation of how they build their language. So right now the first things we talked about is some of what's going on internally and how we need to show up for them. And now we're going to talk about how is it that they actually experience the world and how does that inform the way that they use their bodies for communication and some of the platform of what they're talking about. So humans are predatory. We have eyes in front, loves to hunt. So not all of us are hunters, but we still have eyes there. We have that look. We can have that level of intensity, which is where the story comes. You shouldn't look a horse in the eye. You can look a horse in the eye if you have soft focus. You just don't want to look a horse in the eye looking like this. Eyes on the side, loves to hide. So prey animals, their eyes are on the side so that they can see differently than we can see. If you notice on the sheep, they have rectangular pupils, and they can see almost all the way around themselves. So horses are literally looking at a bubble. They're literally seeing a bubble almost all the way around. Whereas we're looking out in front and we're seeing, like you're seeing me on the little screen right here. And that's how we see. We see pretty much what's in front of us, maybe a little bit on the side and really nothing. We can see Heidi rescuing the dog collar. It's all good. So now we're going to talk about the bubbles of personal space. So what we just talked about is that they see circularly, and that leads to them thinking circularly. They move circularly, they think circularly, they see circularly. So everything to them is about the bubble. So let's really look at that. If you could imagine every time you saw a horse, you could see this bubble around them, you would see where the bubbles intersect. They experience the world that way. That is how they perceive their interactions with each other, with other living creatures, with other objects, etc. Not only do they have a bubble all the way around themselves, but they intersect that bubble so that there's really 4 quadrants. So you have from nose to tail are the 2 blind spots. So right in front, directly in front, and directly behind. And side to side, right through the girth line, is the widest part of the circle relational to their body. So that they orient themselves through that girth button. Now, why this is important to know is because depending on the quadrant you're in, and think back to the wolves chasing the elk a few minutes ago, depending on the quadrant you're in, you're going to be influencing that if you're a predator. So if a predator wants to pigeonhole a prey animal, into a narrow valley so that another predator who's waiting can get them, they're going to squeeze them from those back quadrants. If they want to change their direction, they're going to push against one of the front quadrants. So predators know this. Somewhere in our instinct, we should know this. And we don't want to, again, look like a predator. So we need to know this in order to understand how approaching them is important. So lesson 1, bubbles in kindergarten. When little brand new babies are born, the very first thing they learn about is their bubbles. And you can see these 3 babies here are facing in what I call a fan. They're fanned out. And this is really natural for prey animals, but it's really natural for the babies also. when they have their butts together, they have their faces out. So that's a fan out. So when they're in this position, their butts are protected. Okay. And they can see all around themselves. And so even though they're tiny babies, there's some part of their brain that's already starting to work this way. Now, if somebody steps to the left or somebody steps to the right, those other horses have to negotiate now. Are you going to come into my bubble? Are we going to bounce off each other's bubbles and go a different way? I'm going to ask you to move your bubble over. Are we going to join our bubbles here? Are we going to join our bubbles there? So when they're running all together with their moms, if you look at this image, we can see that the babies are oriented toward the mom's girth. And even there's this one right in the middle there. You can see the baby just tucked in behind his mom and his eyes oriented towards the girth. And then we have this other colt that's out in front, the little roan there, who's a little bit older, and he's exploring, and he's like, I've got my own bubble. And you can see the mom behind swishing her tail saying, get back here. So that's really cute. But this is so innate to them. It's the ground floor of everything that mom starts to teach them. Bubbles interconnected is just thinking that, when they're just standing around, it doesn't look like they're doing anything, they're still talking. They know exactly where every other horse's bubble is. If there's 100 horses there, they all have a bubble. They all know where it is. If you look carefully, you can see some horses are fanned in, some are fanned out. The horse that's facing us in the center, that horse was looking at the camera. So that horse is holding down the fort this way. The other horses are holding down the fort that way. They're always aware of where their bubbles are. They're always aware of where everything else is too. So the reason this is so foundational is that when I got it, when I really, really got it about the bubbles, it changed everything about how I approached horses and how I could get them to approach me and how I could just build that rapport in the first 5 minutes of meeting a horse. So in this case, we see bubbles in harmony. They're grazing. A lot of people say, oh, they're just grazing. No, they're never just grazing. They're always talking. Horses are always talking. So you look here, we have a fan out. They're angled butt to butt. And then we have this one horse on the side who's thinking, oh, I'd like to come in over here, one down to the right. And he's got to figure out how he's going to angle his bubble, because if he walks the way he's walking, that black horse down there, downhill to the right, you can see his bubble is going to bump into the bubble of the gray horse in front. So he's sitting there with his ears sideways going, is he going to let me do that? Or do I need to go move over? He's figuring it out so that he can keep the harmony. And that's the point, bubbles over dinner. So here we have a whole bunch of horses eating their dinner together. And they might have had some squabble. They might have first said, where are you? Go here. I want to be this place. But once they've settled in to where they're going to be, they're going to use the harmony bubble to promote eating. So nobody wants to waste time. Nobody wants to waste energy. Hay is not actually that nutritious. It takes a lot to digest hay. It takes a lot of energy to even pass it through. So what horses want to be able to do is be in their zero as much as possible. So you can see these horses that their ears are all pretty relaxed. They can see each other. They're looking at each other, but they look pretty chill, and they're fanning in a beautiful harmony. Everyone has pretty much equal distance to everyone else. So then we come into the picture, and this is my point. We're built a little bit like a fence post. And I have this guy here with his arms out just to demonstrate. That would be one of the ways for us to show, hey, my bubble goes about as far as my hands can reach. The horses are already in their bubbles. They know they're in their bubbles. They're orienting that way since day one. We're the ones who move in a straight line. So if you roll a ball, we're going to go get it. If you roll a ball at a dog, you roll a little ball for a cat, they're going to go get it. You roll a ball for a horse, unless they've been trained or taught to play with balls, they pretty much just watch it go by or even run away from it. So they don't have necessarily that direct instinct, oh, I should go play with the ball. We do. We can't help ourselves. So the point of this is that if we're going to build rapport with a horse's bubble, we have to become aware of where our bubble is. So I have a little exercise for that. In the first picture on the left, I have my hands out straight. And that's to demonstrate what the hold hand is not. The hold hand is not cop, stop hand. Yikes, I want you to stay right there. Now, that's my horse. And so she knows anytime I put my hand up, she should just put her head down. So she understands that. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to look defensive or offensive to the horse. What you want to have is a soft shoulder, a soft, heavy elbow, and your hand is also soft. So it's more of a friendship, I mean you no harm gesture. And what you want to think about is, like if you've ever scooted down in a movie theater and you're crossing over people's legs and you're saying, sorry. And you've got this, whoops, or in an elevator, whoops, let me just, so that you want to have this, it's a soft gesture. Now in the second picture, I'm actually reaching in to touch the horse with that gesture. I've gone all the way through the bubble and I'm using that hold hand to say, hey, I'm here. Is it okay for me to touch you? What do you think? But you can also do this from 50 feet away. And I recommend you start doing it from 50 feet away, preferably over a barrier of some sort. So there's an artificial bubble, because if there's a barrier creating an artificial bubble, what's nice about that is that you can stay zero and the horse can stay zero because nobody's stressing anybody out. So you can practice feeling this. Can I find the edge of my bubble? Can I find the edge of your bubble? And they're going to let you know that you found it because they're going to do something. They'll look towards you. They'll look away from you. They'll put their head up or down. They'll flinch in ear. They'll look at you. They'll take a breath, whatever. But they will do something to say, you touched it. And if you can practice, just if you're going to get your horse, a lot of you are going to go ride your horse tomorrow. On your way there, can you practice, gee, where is that bubble? How, when did I find it? That also becomes very attractive to them because now they say, oh, you're becoming aware of personal space. How intriguing. Let me pay more attention to you. Now, if the horse turns away for any reason, again, we don't necessarily like that, but what it means in their language is they yielded the front quadrant to you. So remember, go all the way back to that image of the quadrants. And if a horse yields their head out of that front quadrant, they're saying, I yield the space to you. So maybe I don't want to engage with you right now, but I'm also not going to be offensive. So just keep that in mind. It's not necessarily that the horse doesn't want you. It's just that they're yielding that space to you. The reason why the hold hand does work is because horses have this gesture as well. And everything that I teach, everything that I'm going to demonstrate to you guys in the next 6 weeks comes from horses directly. So even if you've seen a trainer do some of these things, or you said, oh, well, this person does this or that person does that, I would see those things too. And then I would go back to the horses and say, do horses do that? When do they do it? How do they do it? Why do they do it? And the bottom line is, if horses do it, then I'm going to try to do that body movement or that body mechanic in the same way, with the same feel, with the same timing, with the same understanding that they do it. So in this picture, what you're seeing is the brown horse on the right is in the hold posture. Now, a lot of people will see this posture and think that horse is maybe ignoring you or tuning you out, but that's not the case. Now, he has backward facing ears, which is not necessarily annoyance, it's concentration. If they went more backward, that would be going towards, I'm feeling annoyed. Right here, I'm concentrating, I'm thinking about this. He has a medium high head. He has open nostrils, so he's breathing deeply. His lips are not too pursed, and he's pretty square in his stance. And all of those are the signals that a horse will give when they say, okay, I'm going to stand right here. This is my bubble, and you go do what you got to do, and I'm going to be right here. You can come back here when you're ready. So the black horse on the left had gotten spooked by something, and she was running around. The brown horse was going to hold his ground. And he was going to stand there until she was ready to come back to him. Now I'm coming in to the right there, and I'm in an O posture because I'm joining forces with him to help give her a place to land. But the hold hand is another way to do that. Just coming in and saying, I've got you, I've got you, I've got you. I'm not going to come get you. It's not, I'm going to get you. It's, I've got you. When horses do come through the bubbles to communicate with each other directly, when they've decided, hey, let's have a direct one-on-one, let's get a little more intimate here, they reach through the bubbles and they touch muzzle on muzzle. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on. I'm going to really go into a lot more depth about the greeting ritual and where it comes from, what it does, and how we can use it in 101 ways, and even as a diagnostic tool. So for now, just know that when they do say, hey, how are you? It's here. So the imitation for us is with a soft knuckle like this, not a fist. Don't punch your horse in the nose, and not a sort of hand. You don't want to like that. You really want to just have a soft knuckle and just hi, and that's enough. And you wouldn't also want to do hi, oh my God, my horse is touching me, oh my God, because now they're going to say, you're shaking my hand for way too long. So just be aware of that, because I've seen some people go, the magic is happening, and they leave it for too long, and then the horse is like, the magic is over. So it's really important to know that that is an essential connection point for horses. So here, when I'm greeting them, you can see that I'm not punching or forcing the touch. If I'm reaching through to a horse who is a little bit shy, maybe a little bit hesitant, I might finish and go the distance myself and say, no, it's okay, we can touch here. And then I would take my hand away. And the reason to do that is because I want to make that connection. I want to build that rapport. I want to say, I know that the front of the bubble is the best way to start this connection. So we're going to now talk a little bit about the exercises. We're just going to summarize. So here's an image of me. I'm greeting this horse in the front of the stall, but I had it with this particular mare. I had already gone through all the other things. So I practiced my zero. I had done a good deal of mirroring with her. I was watching out for the 4 Fs. Was she a flighty horse? Was she more of an aggressive horse where she felt like she had to fight? Was she looking to flock? Was she paying attention to the other horses a lot? Or did she freeze up in her stall and say, I don't know what's happening? So which one of the 4 Fs did she do? And that would help me know, well, what could I do to bring zero to that place? Having an artificial boundary like the stall just sets up the bubble of personal space. I'm not going to invade you. You can't invade me. We can have this conversation and we can get to know each other, and it's easier for both of us to start dropping to zero. And keep in mind, horses want to drop into zero. It doesn't feel good to them to be in a heightened state of adrenaline, being stuck in one of these Fs. That is not where they want to live their life. They want to live their life at zero. So when I start to say, let's go to zero, horses say, okay, that's a good idea. That's where I want to be. And again, we're going to think about using the hold hand. So even as you're approaching, just get in the practice of having it. You could turn your hold hand into your greeting hand, put it back to your hold hand. This is just a good practice, just to kind of begin getting used to that signal. And again, staying on the outside of the bubble as much as you can for observation, because you want to be turning that looking into seeing. And sometimes the best way is to sit in a chair and watch horses. Just sit and study them and mirror them inside yourself. And if it's awkward, if there's too many people around and you don't want to be doing this in front of people, then you can do it in your mind. Just watch, but in your mind, let yourself mirror. Say, oh, wow, he just moved his shoulder 3 times. If you don't know what it means, it doesn't matter. Just mirror it anyway. Because this is a stage of building rapport inside yourself as much as you're trying to build rapport with them. Because again, it's a little awkward for us at first to get out of our verbal brain and into our nonverbal brain. And we want to make sure that when we're going there, we have an ease with it so that we're at our zero. And we want to make sure that we're bringing that ease to them. So one thing to caution about is when you are mirroring, don't go faster than the horse. So if he flopped his ears to the side or he dropped his head, don't drop your head really fast. Try to have the same feel and pace and timing as they're having. So we have a few minutes here to take some questions.
And what I would like to do is, if you all were going to stop the screen share, and if you notice on the bottom of your screen, it says manage participants, and you can actually raise your hand and I will unmute you and we will have you ask questions live as we have a little bit of time left, as well as you can shoot Heidi an email if you have anything that you need to ask at this time. So please find where it says raise your hand and we can go from there. If you need any help, please let us know. And I'm gonna jump over to the chat, see if anyone needs anything.
There's a Steve.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm gonna unmute Colleen right now. So you're live on with everybody, Colleen.
Hi.
If you can, where did she go? She went away. Oh, okay. Next one would be Diane. I'm sorry, I can't.
Click on her.
Eisler, thank you.
You're welcome.
I apologize.
Go ahead.
I have a question. I saw a little demo at the Canadian Horse Expo with you
Yep.
guys, and I just wanted to know when you did the greeting with the horses, you also did like the sentry breath. Is that
Yes.
something that you always do in a greeting, or you just do that at certain times?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we are going to have a whole discussion about the sentry breath
Okay.
because it's kind of a big breath. There's two phases to a sentry position in a herd. One phase is called scan the horizon, where it's like hold position, but it's one up. So hold is here. Scan the
Yes.
horizon is here.
Okay.
Sentry breath is here. What the heck was that? Okay. So they're like
Okay.
stages of each other. When I'm in a situation like that where it's a horse on high adrenaline, he was in his F's, right? He's like, can I get out of here? Do I fly? So when you're in a place like that, I'm going to go to the highest level. I'm going to go to the sentry level because the horse is already very high in
I
their
have
reaction.
used that, and it's awesome.
Awesome.
I was amazed because I work at a rescue, and we have all sorts of issues with different horses. They're older, and we've had a thoroughbred that gets a little whipped out with the wind today, and
Oh yeah.
that sentry breath, that's like golden.
Yeah.
I can't even explain to you how wonderful it's been with so many of our horses, that when they come out on a day like today, or something's changed, like there's they were taking Christmas decorations out of the barn, and
Yeah.
things like that. You just stop and scan the horizon and go,
That's right.
oh, okay, then everything's fine. You're the leader. That's good. Let's go. It's wonderful. Thank
Oh,
you.
great. You're welcome. So now you know that there's stages of it. So you can practice your hold hand, and that would be your first go-to.
Mhm.
And then your scan, and then your sentry. So you can give them also a ladder that they can go up and down. And the ideal would be to bring them down so that if I just put my hold hand up, that's enough. But at first, if it's really windy, it's really scary, sentry breath is the place to go.
Okay. Now the hold hand, when would I use, I'm finding I've used that almost like, being the mother, don't even try it, as I'm taking, say, one of the mares through the barn, and there's a couple of the geldings who just, want to bite her ass. So, I put my hand up like the mother, don't even think about it.
Does it work?
It does.
Yeah.
Actually.
So then you're holding the bubble for the other horse. You're holding back the bubble.
Okay.
And that.
I also use that mother look, actually.
Yeah. Yes, and that works too.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right, Sarah Jane, you're up next.
Actually, it was my daughter Elizabeth that wanted to ask for a little more clarification on the hand holding.
The hold hand?
Yeah.
Okay. So hold hand, to begin practicing it, and this is why I didn't do too much of it in the book, because it is confusing and it looks too much like pop stop hand.
Okay.
You really want to practice, your shoulder is relaxed, your elbow is relaxed, but your hand is up, and you just want to practice. If I was to touch someone's shoulder and just be like, hi, how are you? And it's very soft touch. And what you're going to be exploring is using it to say, how, like hot and cold, right? So how close am I to your bubble? And bringing your palm close to the horse and then away from the horse and then close, and as you move in and as you move away. And it's every horse is different and every person is different, but really it's a tool at this stage. It's going to become more things, but at this stage it's a tool for you to practice getting a sense of where your bubble is. So you're really just saying, hey, my bubble's right about here where my hand is, and let me know when I've hit your bubble. Marco Polo, let me know when I've hit your bubble. And they're going to do something. They'll flinch away or towards or up or down, and they'll let you know. So that's what that's for. And then as you get good at it, you can use it to, like this other woman was holding another horse back, or you could say, calm down, or hold, be with me. You can even do it from 100 feet away in a field. A horse is, getting nervous, and you throw up your hold hand. You say, I've got it. I've got you. You're okay. My hold hand is up. And so it's a tool for those purposes. But for now, it's really just for you to help define your bubble and help the horse be able to define your bubble too.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. And next will be Jan. You're unmuted, Jan.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm unmuted. Hi. A couple of questions. One is, I do spend, especially now in the winter, a lot of times, especially with one of my horses with her loose, or we're near each other, either a loose lead. And I've been kind of bending my head down, and I've noticed that she's been mirroring me.
Yes. That's the next phase. I call that copycat, because, at first the mirroring is sort of innocent. That's why I'm equating it to childhood, when you're just doing what others do. But copycat is more of a game where, now I've induced a movement, and I've said, hey, horse, are you going to copy me? And so the horse is like, yep, going to copy you. That's great. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with the horse choosing to mirror you. That's the horse saying, I will get in harmony with you. That's a great next step.
And yet, with this specific horse, I feel that in many other areas, that type of relationship is really lacking.
Yeah.
And missing. Yeah. And she's been lately like very excited. So my other question about mirroring is, because I'm envisioning kind of hanging out either in their stall or near the stall and kind of working on that. But what about when they're agitated? They're in that kind of mood.
That's a good question. So if a horse is agitated and running around, you don't want to mimic losing your mind.
Yeah.
So mimicry is really about, following along when things are in a calm state. You're moseying along. Oh, you're eating some hay. You can later, mimicry will teach you a lot if you have a mentor. If there's a mentor who's really good at corralling other horses and having them calm down, learning to mirror the mentor's movements. I recently talked to someone who, she goes to get her horse from the field and doesn't want to leave this one sort of dominant male who's out there who protects her from the other horses who kind of pick on her. And so I was like, well, mirror him. You don't want to be mirroring her as much at this point, because you want to mirror him so you look more like the one who protects her. And she said, oh, good, that's great, because that's what I just started doing and it's working. So, it's use some common sense with it. But the bottom line is that if we're spending conscious time, like I'm going to go out 5 minutes, I'm setting a timer, and I'm going to do nothing but mirror my horse for 5 minutes, unless the wind is blowing and my horse is freaking out. I don't want to mirror that. But I'm going to just mirror eyeballs and ears and breathing and stepping and looking and head up, head down, that kind of stuff. Because what I want to say to the horse is, hey, I'm really making an effort here to get in harmony with you. And what I'm teaching my own body language is how to unpack some of the habits that our bodies get into. So that's really what it's for at this stage.
And if the horse is having a tough time and is running around, that's when you can practice your zero.
Yes.
And do round
And your hold
shoulder,
hand.
your hold hand, and put your fingers
Put your fingers together.
do
See
some
other stuff.
deep breathing
Yeah.
and those kinds of things to see if you can help get your nervous system to line up with theirs. So maybe they'll start copying you and getting back to their zero.
Right.
That's great. Thank you.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Karen. You're on live with everyone, Karen.
Hi. So this question is really from my husband, who is participating, Greg.
Okay.
And he wanted to know concerning the bubbles, the horse's bubbles.
Yeah.
Presumably, each horse has its own size bubble, like
Yes.
some smaller, some larger.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the bubbles will contract and expand with situations. So if the horse is afraid, the bubble may get bigger and they may not want you inside the bubble, or it may get really small and they want to crowd and hide with you because they're flocking. So if they've gone into the flock mode, that bubble's going to shrink and they're going to try to get in your lap. But if they've gone into the flight mode, that bubble might expand and they're like, get out of my way, I need to go. So
Okay.
that's why it's really important to develop a feel for the bubbles. And so I'm trying to create a mechanical way to teach feel, right? And feel can become an instinctive, it can become second nature. But for a lot of us, we have to learn these things on purpose. So this is a way to start learning to feel that bubble on purpose more often than not.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Next will be Cad. You are unmuted.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for everything.
Oh, great.
And my name is Chris Dickerson, and Heidi was so kind to email me this afternoon and give me all this link. Here's my question. So I'm a somewhat new horse owner just for a couple of years. And once I got your book, I've just been reading it over and over and over. So my horse, I have two horses and they're, pretty domesticated. And I've tried some of your techniques, and there's a rescue horse at my barn, and that horse seems to do all of the things that you said, just like look at me, like, whoa, you are sort of speaking horse.
Yeah.
Which is so fun. I'm just trying your techniques and trying to learn them. My two horses they speak human pretty well, and they just kind of look at me like they love me, I like to think and hope. We have a great relationship, but when I try to do some of your techniques, I feel like they just look at me like you're an idiot. Where's my treat? Not you're an idiot, but you're an idiot for what is this? Stick your hand out and try to touch my nose.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for horses who are already so accustomed to speaking human?
Yeah. The horses that are friendly, or they've had a really good training history, so they're okay with learning to speak human. Again, all this stuff still is in there, and they still have the 4 Fs. They still exist, and if they've learned to be really calm and happy in the human world, that's great. Good news. What I would suggest is to go ahead and practice mirroring them from a distance. Just start there and learn some of what they do when they're with each other or by themselves. Does that make sense? Oops, I think we muted you. Say that again.
Wait a second.
We
I
lost
lost. Where'd she go? I need to unmute her. Can you unmute yourself?
it.
I don't think you have. I can't find you. Just a second. I apologize.
Sorry about that.
So many clicks.
Down here.
There
right
she is.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Say it again.
Oh, hi, I just said that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay.
Welcome.
Well, because all you want to do is link up some of your body language with their body language. And my experience is, even with horses who are perfectly happy in the human world doing stuff with us, once they realize I want to communicate with you in your language, there's a little light that goes off in their head, and they go, Oh, and usually what happens with those horses is they become teachers very quickly, and they say, well, if you're going to talk horse, you have to do it right. And then
I
they
see.
start, like you'll go to greet them and they'll go, what comes next? And you're like, I don't know. And they're like, go away face comes next, remember? And I've had this happen so many times. It's crazy.
Okay, that sounds fun. I'll be doing that next.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is Colleen. You are unmuted.
Hi guys, how are you?
Oh.
Sorry, I'm at work. I might have to cut out if we get a call. I'm dealing with a gelding who came from a lesson program, probably didn't have real consistent boundaries. I know he didn't have consistent boundaries better. So when we're doing zero in the stall, he sometimes decides that he would rather be outside the stall, and for obvious reasons, safety and barn rules, we can't have that.
Yeah.
But I think he's also been in a position where he's gotten yelled at enough by enough people. He's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm going to do my thing anyway. And kind of pushes past you. Some days he's great and he'll just take a step back when you put your hands up.
Yeah.
Other times he really just wants to do his thing and isn't really concerned about having a soft hold. So I want to retrain that.
Yeah. So working with a horse in a stall is something we're going to get into in like week 3. But for you, if you've already read the book and you're familiar with the go away face button, that's actually that's going to be your go-to, but don't stab at it. The thing is that a lot of people, when the horse is getting pushy back at us, we kind of get pushy, we get triggered too, and we get pushy back at them. So one of the keys to what you're looking for actually is for his nervous system to get down off the F's, because he's on the F's. He's somewhere in there, and he's either in fight, he's in flight, he may not be off, hanging off the ceiling, but when they start to do their own thing, that's because nature's kicking in and going, nope, I can't listen to you. Right. So you want to do a go away face in a way that is just a request and not a stab or a push or a defensive motion, and has a bit of a hold in it. And then you can also try stroking down his throat. So right here in the groove, the deep, deep, deep groove, the carotid artery is. Yep. The vagus nerve also lies there. And so if you stroke that 3 times deeply and then stop, so it's 1, 2, 3 and stop. And some horses are like, you do 1 and they go, no, stop now. You're literally asking them to dump the adrenaline. Right. And then he might need to go to the back of the stall and think about it and then come back. And a lot of horses who act like what you're saying will need to think about it a few times. And all of a sudden they go, can you do that again? And they start requesting it.
Right. And about 75% of the time we can either get the soft hold or he'll stroke and drop his head. And then there's that 25% where I think he's just old habit and just.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about positioning your core in a different way and using your feet in a different way. There's a lot of posturing that goes into it's called owning the space in front. And, so but thank you. And remind me about that later. But for now, what I would do is over the stall when you don't need him and you don't need to work with him, or if he's in a paddock, go practice the mirroring with him, because that's another way to tell him, hey, buddy, I'm on your side.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe outdoors is going to be a better choice for him for now.
Probably. Some horses are too riled up in their stall. That's just a thing.
All right. Thanks, ladies.
Okay.
Oh, you're welcome. Excellent. And now, Miss Katie, our last question of the evening. You're on with everyone.
Hi, thank you. This has been fabulous. And you just answered my question, so I don't have a question. It's on. Anyway, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
And Heidi wants to come on in and say something at the closing for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see?
All right.
All
and
right.
Katie's still on.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I don't know how that happened. Well, let's just start talking.
yeah.
There.
So anyways, guys, I'm here. If you still have questions, please raise your hand and we'll see them in the next couple of minutes. I want to thank you guys all for signing in. It's great just to see your names and know you're there. And also, we'd love your feedback. So feel free to shoot me an email. Let me know what you thought. And also, if you have any friends that you think want to join in, they can still sign up for the webinar and we can forward them the recorded session for tonight. So I think that's all I have to say in closing. Again, thanks so much. And for all you that were signed up at 1 o'clock and Zoom was down and we had a snowstorm and lost power and all those good things
Everything
happened. Thank you so much for adjusting your schedules and joining us this evening. So
We're
that's
looking forward
it
to
for me.
seeing everyone next week.
Yes, we'll see
Yeah.
you all next week. Thanks so much.
Take care,
Take care.
everyone.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Good night.
Thanks.